best thing that came from it was feedback, direct, honest, sometimes even brutal feedback that led me to make some changes around the packaging and even the formula and the positioning. So when we first started, you can Google Ethan's and still find our old bottle. And now it's a much more well-designed, appealing product. Changes like that came from the selling process of being told no and asking why.
Welcome to Reinventing Perspectives. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Ethan Hirshberg. Ethan, I'm so excited to have you here because our listeners are going to have their ears up for your story today. So thank you for joining us. It's an honor. Ethan, tell us who you are and what's your mission.
As you said, I'm Ethan. My company is actually called Ethan's. My personal mission, even outside of Ethan's, is just to create products that make a big difference in people's daily lives. At the moment, that's taking the form of health and wellness and nutrition. I tend to gravitate towards that because that mission manifests itself in the products we make. You can kind of see them over my shoulder. Daily doses of either energy or immunity or wellness that are very kind of easy for people to take and integrate into their daily lives, that I've committed a lot of time and energy to making sure the products are actually effective and actually make a difference for people. It's kind of more of a personal mission that's manifested itself in what we make, but I really, really enjoy making products. So that's kind of my personal passion and mission.
Please tell us, where did this all begin?
I'll try to do that as succinctly as possible. So I have a background in food and beverage. I grew up around it, and then that was my first job out of college and been involved in that world. My mom, she's a 3-time breast cancer survivor, and she actually started a program. It's like an anti-cancer lifestyle program. So around building your lifestyle, your nutrition, environment, exercise, basically like a healthier lifestyle. And so I kind of took all my learnings there and started diving into the health, wellness, nutrition world. And I worked for a beverage company in San Francisco for a few years, kind of learned how to make products, and then just started doing research on my own. The very first product that I made was an apple cider vinegar shot. I don't know if you come across apple cider vinegar. This was 6 years ago, so it was still, at least here, it was still just on niche health blogs and stuff. But what I was finding was amazing. All the research and studies around it were really kind of cutting edge and inspiring. And so I started working with a friend of mine who's a nutritionist to design a product that had, the right dose of apple cider vinegar. And then we started working in other complementary ingredients, turmeric and black pepper, to create my first product, which I just made right in my kitchen. It had all the right doses of all the organic, best sourced ingredients. When I went to make a product to sell, it was way too expensive and hard to make. And so that was my first sort of butting up against reality. I had this golden idea, and then I had to actually figure out how to package it and sell it and make it work. And so that was where it all began. Man, since then, it's just sort of taken on a life of its own. Now our main products are actually energy shots. I don't know if they have 5-hour energy over where you are, but there's probably something like that. But it's a big phenomenon over here. It's on every gas station counter. And the mission has kind of evolved. I mean, it's still the same, of just to make products that are addressing people's needs and helping them in their daily lives. But that can take any form, right? So this energy one was a big one, where it was I know a lot of people are out there drinking energy drinks that are actually bad for them. I've seen the reports on all the ingredients that are in there, the things they put in to make the blood rush to your face so that you feel the sensation of energy. I mean, these are sort of I don't want to say bad actors, but they're making products that are not good for you. They're actually harming you. That become a big part of our mission is on the energy side, but really it's still just sticking to making research-based, organic, sustainable packaging, non-toxic packaging. We use glass bottles, for instance. That's kind of the story of a few years condensed down into a couple minutes of how we got here.
You wanted to make everything organic. This was your mission. And then you butt up against all these reasons why it's too expensive to make. How difficult it is to move away from your original idea. How did you manage to do that?
I think it really depends on the person. What I've said to a few people is take those companies that I just mentioned who make those bad energy drinks, right? At some point, that was a founder trying to create something. Maybe that founder was just trying to make money. That might just be the case, which is fine. That's oftentimes how businesses start. But any mission-driven company, it starts off with a founder, they have an idea, and then they start encountering things. So I just think at that moment, you have to decide what are your non-negotiable things. Because as you go through building a business, you just run into challenges that test your commitment commitment to your values, because there's always a corner to be cut. And when you have investors and a board and you need to save money on margin, those are the first things to go out the window, are like the more expensive things that you wanted to make in the first place. So what I did really have like my non-negotiable things, which are organic. Organic has been the hardest thing to stick to. I mean, everything we make, we run into massive challenges on cost, but also on like formulation. There are certain ingredients I want to include in the energy shot I know actually really work, but they're not organic. And so like I have to pick and choose there. And I think that's a really important one to me, that I'm just been like, no matter what, we're not going to do anything non-organic. Doesn't matter the cost. And then the other one that I just mentioned is like the glass bottles. Like, I hate single-use plastic. I hate drinking and eating products out of plastic. And so really like those two for me were like my non-negotiables, no matter what they cost. And then everything else, it was, I started off with my juices were not from concentrate. And then I was spending a ton on shipping and things like that. But then it was like, I looked into and did some research on like juice concentrates. And it's like, okay, they're not that bad. They just evaporate the water out of it. We're going to save a ton of money on shipping. So you kind of find other places where you are willing to make compromises to make your product feasible, if that makes sense. So like your question of just like, you start butting up against things and then you just see where you can make concessions that are still within your kind of value range and see if you can start to make it work. And nobody starts with great margins or anything. So you have that, but then you just have to kind of piece it together as you go. And I think sometimes you do run into something where you're like, I cannot make this the way that I want to. And then you have a decision to make of, do you just abandon the whole thing or do you kind of stray outside your values? But it's a difficult challenge for any mission-driven company.
Your company name is Ethan's, and that's actually your first name. Why that specific choice?
It's actually really funny because I started to write these like from our founder emails that go out to our email list, and people seem to really like it. Just like little letters about what's going on with the company and my challenges and things like that. And the one I just wrote was about being front facing, being like a marketing founder. I have this responsibility to the company because I chose to put my name right on the front of it. Naturally, you're like, well, who's Ethan and why should I care? Right. But the original decision, so I had this apple cider vinegar product that I was ready to bring to market. I had the bottle, the cap, the place to make it. I had all the ingredients and everything. I needed something to call it. And I was actually going to name the company something. I had some ideas around vinegar. That was what I wanted to do. But somebody gave me some really good advice, which was like, hey, you don't know what you're going to start to make after this, right? Like maybe you make your detox vinegar drink and then you want to make something else. And that was exactly what happened. And so they were like, let's think of something that is kind of less product specific and more just kind of like an umbrella to start building your brand under, that people are going to associate your brand name with, the values rather than just the specific product. And I didn't really have any ideas. One thing I do like is that I made these products, me and my co-founder, but like I made these products literally with my own hands, and I think that like there is something to be said for, it's like I'm putting my name on this. You can Google the company and you'll find me. And I think that there is something to be said for that in business, of like, for the consumer to know like there's a real human being behind this product. And I think also to kind of say, I endorse this product. It means a lot to me and I created it and gave it to the market and I stand behind it. It sort of turned into this cool thing. I don't really like the front facing marketing side of it personally, but I think it's turned into a nice connection. Our hardcore consumers like email me, my email's on the bottle too. It's like ethan@ethans.com. And so it's kind of turned into this cool like connection, I think.
Ethan's, it sounds sort of like craftsmanship, craftsmanship behind the products. That's the sense that you get about it. And since you did mention that it started with sort of founders letters, it's interesting now to ask, what were sort of the values that you wanted to put forward and what was your process with that?
I guess, like I said, the values of the actual product, organic and sustainable packaging, like those are the values that are baked into it. I guess the other one is kind of what I just mentioned, which we've kind of gotten away from like the intimacy of food, where I know that everything I make, if I'm lucky enough to have people buy it, they're literally putting it into their bodies. Like there's no bigger responsibility, I think, than that. And so to make something that's like potentially harmful to people, is they are trusting you and the brand on your bottle enough to put it inside their own bodies, which is like a pretty big responsibility. One of the values that I try to carry is getting back to taking that responsibility seriously and letting people know that there's a real human on the other side considering them. I make products that like my mom and dad eat and drink. If I would make something that I would give to them, then you can trust, I think, at least someone cares enough to think about it that way.
Just a quick ask. If you're finding this information helpful, please share it with someone that you know would love this conversation and would find this information beneficial. Thank you again for listening in. And let's jump back into our conversation. You've made your first batch and you've gone out to sell. What was that like?
That's the biggest imposter syndrome moment, right? Like everyone talks about the imposter syndrome. The way that I chose to approach it was not to like pretend that I knew more than I did, because I didn't know anything, and really just talk about the product, kind of like what we've done, and just show my passion for the product and use that as like my selling story. But I will say the best thing that came from selling was like I didn't make a sale really for like, a year probably. And the best thing that came from it was feedback, direct, honest, sometimes even brutal feedback that led me to make some changes around the packaging and even the formula and the positioning. So like when we first started, you can Google Ethan's and still find our old bottle. Like it was like a black label and then it said Ethan's and then it just said apple cider vinegar shot, turmeric or whatever. And now it's like bright yellow packaging and it says Ethan's Daily Detox with apple cider vinegar. It's a much more well-designed, appealing product. So changes like that came from the selling process of like being told no and asking why, and then giving you direct feedback about why it's not a good fit or it doesn't taste good or whatever. The only thing I'll say about that is like everyone has an opinion. You have to kind of be careful about whose opinions you take into consideration and actually make changes. But yeah, the selling part is very vulnerable. I'm better at it now and I have better resources and I understand more, but the only way to get to where you feel confident and like you're well prepared is to jump in the ring, I think.
Hey, small business family, quick pause here. If you've been listening and thinking, I need help getting clear on my message and how to actually market this amazing thing I've created, I've made something just for you. It's called the Clarity Intensive, and it's 2 focused sessions, one-on-one, where we untangle your ideas, map out your next best move, and build a foundation for real business momentum. If you're done thinking what's the right thing to do, and you're ready for a customized strategy that fits you, this is for you. You'll find the link in the show notes, or you can visit the website www.reinventingperspectives.com/shop, and you'll see our Clarity Intensive one-to-one marketing coaching. Let's get back to the show. So for 1 year, what do you mean you didn't get a sale for one? Do you mean like you didn't sell a lot for 1 year?
My process at the very beginning was like, and actually we still kind of do it like this. Like we actually don't run a full commercial production run. We make what we call benchtop samples, which is a fancy word for like in your kitchen. I mean, now we do it in a lab, but back then it was just in the kitchen. And then just kind of like hand label products. And then it was a matter of like trying to make connections and go to trade shows and have people take a look at your products, that kind of thing. But I guess I meant like a big chain retailer. That was what I was really focused on. And that's how most people start off in food and beverage, certainly, but probably any like CPG is getting a reputable chain to say yes, bring you into distribution and kind of like start that real commercial journey. I guess I kind of skipped a step in the story because the very, very first product I made was actually an apple cider vinegar beverage, like a full size drink. People were excited about it enough to get me meetings, but then I kept getting rejected at the last second because there were other companies making stuff like that. So then I downsized it for like a more of a unique angle and we started making the shots. And that was when people started saying yes, because they thought it was like unique and interesting enough. And it's small, so it doesn't take up a lot of room on the shelf. So you start to learn things like that.
After every time, like let's say you have this meeting and it doesn't go as planned, they're excited, but it doesn't go as planned, but you get some feedback. What was your process like?
We did it then and we do it every time we have a sales meeting now is like a little debrief. And I mean, we take things as small as like some anonymous Amazon review into account when thinking about our products, because it's like anywhere that you're getting really, really direct feedback. So like not from your best friend about your products, that's the golden ticket, because people will just be as mean as they want. So a couple big developments that have happened. Well, first of all, the whole reason we launched the energy shot line was because I kept going into meetings with my little like wellness shots, and I kept hearing, and even at like demos and stuff like that, I kept hearing people be like, so is it an energy shot or what is it? And I'm like, well, no, it's for something else. But then I was kind of like, man, everyone sees a shot, like a 2-ounce drink, and they assume it's an energy shot. So I think that's an interesting bit of feedback. We just launched an extra strength energy shot that came from a sales meeting because someone was like, how much caffeine is in it? Oh, it's not as much as this one, that kind of thing. And so that got my wheels turning like, oh, well, maybe we should make an extra strength. So a lot of our product development and changes come directly from sales meeting and just from anywhere that you can get consumer feedback. That's why Amazon is so amazing for me, at least. Is like, I'll just read through all our Amazon reviews and actually make changes. Like if a bunch of reviews say it tastes bad, we'll go change the flavor in real time.
The first time you see your product there next to other products in the store, what was that moment like? Do you remember?
Of course, it's still like the best feeling ever. And actually, there was one time in the first few months that I was on a sales call with my co-founder, and we went to go check a shelf. This is when we had gotten a little bit of traction, and we were in Whole Foods. We went to like the local Whole Foods. I think we were in Dallas, Texas or something. And we were looking at the shelf, and then we kind of moved down the aisle, and someone else came over and was looking at the shelf, and he and I were both peering around the corner watching her, as she picked up like our competitor, read the back, put it back, picked up our shot, read the back, kind of went like that and like put it in her cart. And that was like the coolest moment, I'll always remember that. I mean, seeing it on shelf is one thing, but seeing someone actually make their first time buying decision that's like the best thing ever.
Congratulations on this. This is an amazing, amazing thing that you've accomplished, Ethan, and such a great mission between you and your co-founder. Like, how did you sort of match each other with your co-founder, or what was it that you were looking for in a co-founder?
Complementary skills are clearly pivotal. If I'm being honest, I think the marketing thing that we talked about, that's one that neither of us had. And so I've had to kind of like adapt to that, or try to, doing things like this, or writing a newsletter, or like filming little TikTok videos, the stuff that I really don't want to do. I think complementary skills are critical. The journey, especially in the beginning, but it never really ends, is just really difficult. And if you're alone, it's very isolating. And if you have someone else there that you're aligned with, like it tends to kind of like one person can get pessimistic and the other one kind of will pick them up, right? And they kind of can fluctuate like that. And I think that's really helpful, because anyone listening who has started a business, just, like, especially when you're alone, it's lonely and isolating and hard. And I just think having someone to pick you up, or you picking the other person up, is probably the most valuable thing that comes from having more than one person, and just more ideas. A lot of the companies I've seen up close with more than one founder where it's worked, they have complementary skill sets. And I think you hear that a lot, probably. I think that's a good way to start and limit your mistakes, is by having two people who are good at different things.
I know a lot of our listeners would want to find this out, because a lot of people with product ideas think, well, how am I going to get funding, or how will I get an investor? So I thought I'd just ask you, Ethan, like how you went about that process.
I got some really good investment advice recently, which is just to, instead of just blindly, you start to build your company and then you just start asking everybody, right? Daryl, on your last podcast, it's sort of the same thing when he was saying, like, think about, for them, this is an acquirer, not an investor, but it's sort of the same idea. It's like what they're going to see as risky for you. And I thought that was really good advice, because you're so excited about the potential and everything like that, but like their job is to evaluate, yes, the potential, but also the risk. And so how do you make them feel like you've at least accounted for the risk, or are aware of the risk and going to steer away from it? I think that's a really sound bit of advice from him. And then I think, like, for us, our investor conversations have gone a lot better ever since I had more of an idea of the market. At first, it was like, I have this product, it's really good, and they're like, okay, cool, I don't really care. And now it's like, okay, look, the market size is this big. We think we can take this percent of it. And here's an example of a couple retailers in which we actually have taken, 5% of the shot market. And it's like, now we have sales leads in these other channels. And if we can apply that, something that we've already done, over here, here, and here, then the business will be this big. It starts to be a much more data-driven, grounded, business-oriented pitch. And I think that's where people started to kind of believe in it. In the very, very early stage, it's like the only good investment conversations I had were with people who are founders because they understand. That's why founders, in my opinion, make the best investors. A, because they're typically like the most patient, but also just because they get where you are. Like I've done some investing at that stage, and at that stage, it's strictly about how much do I believe in this person, because there's no real sound business plan. It's more about showing them that you have what it takes, I guess, convincing them of that. Yeah.
What's the advice that you wish you got at the beginning? Things that you sort of had to learn the hard way?
I think for me, the thing that I had wished I'd focused on more was people always ask about your target demographic. That's like almost just a standard sort of throwaway business question. What's your target demographic? And I think in the beginning, I just didn't take it that seriously. I'm like, yeah, it's for everyone. They're good products. They do this and everyone and anyone can buy it. But I think there's a lot of good conventional marketing and branding wisdom around target demographic, and the idea that if you build it for everyone, then you're kind of not building it for anyone. And like to build with a specific customer in mind. It took me a really long time to get around to like, okay, years, like to get around to like, here's who we are talking to and what do they want to hear. And like you start to kind of like imagine your target customer, and that's the person to target. And then anyone else that ends up participating in it, great. But I think that was one where I don't know if this is going to resonate for people, or maybe I was just like the stupid one, but I would take that seriously. I think being too general, I always thought like, again, let's just make products for everybody. And I think that was a mistake in hindsight.
A lot of the things you hear a lot, the foundational things, which sort of seem like they're not important, are actually the most important.
And I think I was some sort of like idealism around that, where I'm like, no, that's like the old Mad Men type of marketing. Over time, I've just realized that that's just a truism of building a consumer-facing brand. You have to be really, really maniacally specific about your target customer, because people need to feel like it was made for them.
In the moments where you felt like you wanted to give up, or things just got so hard that you were like, is this even worth it? Did you have any of those kind of moments?
Oh, I've had a lot of those moments. Yeah. I would love to meet someone who has never had those kinds of moments, because I'm jealous. Unfortunately, a lot of founders, including me at times, like sometimes you find yourself operating out of fear. And I don't think that that's a good place to be. I do think that like some of my highest performance has come from like when I've been really scared about the future of the business. But if you can get yourself mentally into more of a inspired, optimistic place, it could be in the same day. In the morning, you're feeling just paralyzed with fear. And in the afternoon, you have your coffee or your energy shot or something, and you start to feel like, yeah, maybe we can do this. But it can be the smallest thing. Like, so for me, again, going back to like your first question, the thing that keeps me going in harder times is like when I see and receive like direct feedback from customers. Like I'm tying a few things together here, but like I told you, I put my email on the back of the bottle. Occasionally I'll get one that's like, try your product, it sucks. Most of the time it's people being like, wow, this has made such a big difference for me, or like my wife, we can't drink coffee because of that, or I tried energy drinks because of this. I worked a night shift for 12 hours, or I was sick with something, and like your immune products, like that kind of thing. And I just have all those like bookmarked in my email, and I'll like read through them, because you get so bogged down, at least for me, I'm in retailer pitches and dealing with operations challenges and whatever. And you start to get further and further away from like just meeting your end consumer. And a lot of times you think the retailer is your customer, but it's really the person walking in the aisles that's like shopping for their family, right? So it's like the more you can stay connected to that person. And for me, it's like have a bit of feedback about how all this work we've put in has actually made a difference for even like one person. That puts me in more of like an optimistic frame of mind. And I think that's a better place to be in terms of kicking yourself into gear and being creative. Yeah, all the things that you need to do in those early stages.
I love that. Finding a way to stay inspired and reminders of the impact that your work is having. When you're starting out, there's so many things that need to be done. As you keep doing things, you realize, oh, there's a gap. I need to learn how to do this. Okay, maybe I need to learn how to do social media, do social marketing. And you're trying to learn things, and you're trying to get the business up, and you're trying also to be a person who also shuts down all those thoughts of the business. How did you navigate those, especially in the early years?
Well, I think first is like just being honest with yourself about what you don't know and kind of starting there. But I also think that, look, like it served me really well to this point to always believe that I can learn to do something, which I think is, I don't know if that's like sounds obvious. And actually, that was another bit of great advice I got was like, I told someone that I'm not good at marketing, and most people would say, oh wow, interesting, and they were like, give me a break. Like, I don't buy that, and I think it's like a cop out. This is them. They think it's a cop out when someone says they're not good at marketing or sales. You start this thing and you have to get good at those things or get competent at those things. Being a founder by definition is being a generalist, right? You have to do everything. And so you have to be confident in yourself to learn. So I really like that person kind of pinned me down on that and said, don't give yourself that out of just saying, oh, I'm not good at this, and maybe I'll hire someone who is. Challenge yourself to maybe read a book about that or go on Twitter and read interesting threads about it. I don't know. There's a lot of good resources. Saying you're not good at something or you don't know something is a cop out, and I've been guilty of it in the past, but I think it's good to sort of like, keep yourself disciplined about that.
To the audience, please go to ethans.com, or they can find the products on Amazon. Ethan, please let us know, what is the number one book that you would say has sort of made an impact in how you've gone about things?
It's actually not so much a business book, but, well, actually I have two. One is Different by Young Mae Moon, and I don't know if you've heard about that one, but again, going back to this like branding and packaging conversation, that was the one that for me kind of kicked me into gear on like, okay, I have to become a great marketer, and how do you build a brand that is different? Like, you have this great product, but how do you build the brand side? And then everyone knows Brene Brown. Dare to Lead is the first book that anybody doing anything should read, and particularly in business, I think. But that book is just cover to cover. It's full of wisdom and truths about life and about business and leadership and building. And so I would always recommend that one. And I think her big thing is vulnerability. That's kind of like the good stuff. And that's the stuff that people pick up on and that leads people. In the case of business or branding, it could be anything, but that's the thing that leads people to kind of buy in and get interested is like, if I go out there and I just act like I'm bulletproof and it was written in the stars for my company to be the greatest company that ever was, that's not as interesting as someone who just had an idea and wanted to try to build something that's sort of rooted in that idea of like being vulnerable and kind of putting yourself out there, which is the basis of any business or podcast or like you name it. You have to put yourself out there, that's hard.
Ethan, where do you see ethans.com 10 years from now? Where are we going?
With Ethan's, like, I've mentioned a few specific products, but what we're building or what I'm trying to build is something different I say food and beverage, but it's really supplement space. I think supplements is like this category that's really kind of a little bit of a dirty word where it's like supplements, like what I'm trying to do is build a trustworthy, transparent, health-oriented, better for you supplement brand. And so right now we have the shots, which I mentioned. We have little drink mix powders. So you like put these in your water, and this is an energy one. We have immune and stuff like that. I'm trying to make this brand into a platform for, I guess, just functional supplements that are actually rooted in nutrition and research that are good for you and bioavailable and don't have any of the drawbacks of, frankly, just the conventional sort of supplement space. And that's my hope, is to build the brand into a platform that people can trust and go to for energy, immunity, detox, sleep, you name it. So that's the idea, and I'm hoping that's sort of where it evolves to. Thanks for mentioning the website and Amazon. And also, if you're in the US, Whole Foods, CVS, Walgreens, a bunch of gas stations. So you can pretty much find us anywhere, all 50 states. So appreciate it.
Yeah, so exciting. Now, my last question is always, Ethan, what has faith meant to you on your journey?
The only real faith that I've had is just that you do something with the right intentions, you're going to end up somewhere good. And that includes, like, if the business failed, that I'm doing the right thing. And again, that goes all the way back to the first question, which is, if you're just doing it to make money, you're probably more likely to give up when things go wrong. When you're doing something for, like, what I would say kind of the right reasons, like because you have a mission and values that you're trying to instill in a business, then A, it makes you stick around longer because you actually care. And then also like it at least gives me faith that it's going to make a difference for some people, and that even in the end, like I personally will be better off for having done it regardless of what happens. I think that's the most important thing, is like you can't guarantee success at all when you start a business. You don't know, but just knowing that you're going to come out on the other end okay and probably better for it regardless.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. And for me, the audience, every time they see that Ethan's, and when they buy it, they're going to remember that they were fortunate to see you going around doing your personal brand facing, even though you said you hate it. But it's so good to hear from the person who's built the brand and who's built the product, and to know how much care you put into it. So thank you so much, Ethan, and thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for doing what you do.
I hope you got a lot of information, a lot of actionable things out of these episodes. Please, two huge favors from you. Please let us know what kind of things you'd like to hear. And if you really love the episode, please support us by going and leaving a review in your podcast listening app. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with the Reinventing Perspectives podcast. We value you. See you again next week.